Welcome to Should I Move There, where we explore different places you can possibly live within the States and abroad. I'm your guide, Brian, and today we're going to be talking about Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and northern Idaho, specifically with Chris and Cari. Chris and Cari, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome. Great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So tell me a little bit about the area that you live in, and a little bit of background of how you came about to living in Coeur d'Alene.
Sure. So I've been in North Idaho since 2001, and Cari has been here since really 2020. Had been visiting since 2017, but living full time since 2020. So our goal is to really give you a perspective of somebody that's been here for a while, and then somebody that's new to the area is what we look to share with you.
Awesome. Excellent. Okay. Great. That's so awesome. And okay, when I say Coeur d'Alene, it's Coeur d'Alene. I'm saying that right?
Correct. Yes.
I said Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I don't know why I said Idaho. I was like,
just added another D in there. It's okay.
Yeah. We've heard worse.
Well, okay. Let's talk about this. So, northern Idaho is like it's different than the rest of Idaho. I've been hearing. How is it different, maybe from the rest of the state?
Great question. So a lot of it just is the terrain itself and the landscape. And so we're really surrounded by a tremendous amount of trees and bodies of water. So we have two of the largest lakes up here in North Idaho, actually three of the largest lakes up here in North Idaho. And so we're fortunate enough to live right around, and we have a boat slip on Lake Coeur d'Alene. And it's a beautiful lake. I mean, people compare it to Lake Tahoe, people compare it to other lakes, mountain lakes, and it's just one of the most stunning I think drives for people to do. You know, there's just so much to see, but just the sheer beauty. And then the ski resorts, that's another factor that you have. You have 3 ski resorts in the area. You're 30 minutes from a international airport in Spokane. So we're right in that panhandle of Idaho. So it's right in the skinny. So we're close to Montana, we're close to Washington, and then we're close to Canada. And so it's got a lot of great benefits to it.
So there's a funny story that I'm going to share, because when I met Chris, I was not living in Idaho, and I asked where he was from, and he said Idaho, and I asked him if he was a potato farmer. It's still a running joke, because he was like, no, I am not a potato farmer. I live in North Idaho. And I was like, well, what do you mean? I thought everybody in Idaho was on a potato farm. So there is a bit of a, when you hear Idaho, people think farms, they think potatoes. And in North Idaho, it's very, very different. It would be much more, in my opinion, like Montana. When I first came here, that was my perspective coming from the Midwest. Now, if you go to the central or southern part of the state, it feels there are mountains and there are some things, but it feels a little bit more like farm country and so forth, like I grew up. So we went past we went to the street fair yesterday, which was this weekend. So Coeur d'Alene has a lot of things to do, which is one of the things I love the most about it, because I love just to be out around people and doing things. Yeah. So there's an art on the green and a street fair every single year in the summer in August. So we took our boat down and did that this weekend. And there's a shirt that said, what about potatoes? I don't know, but it made me laugh. And so I think when people think about Idaho, that's what they think of. And then when they realize what Coeur d'Alene and North Idaho has to offer, it's completely different. So that would be an observation for somebody that didn't know much about Coeur d'Alene and then just recently here. Yeah.
Okay. That was so good. We're gonna shed some light on this, like for you, if you're not super familiar with the area. Talk a little bit about the lake. Topography has a big impact on how you interact and how you're living and doing things. And I know in Florida, someone was telling me in the Panhandle, they have a really big boat culture. So it sounds like you're just like, oh yeah, we took the boat out this weekend. Is that a part? Yeah, talk about that more, like the culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a big part of the lake. One of the biggest attractions to people, and one of the icons of the thought of Coeur d'Alene is the Coeur d'Alene Resort. And so they have a big boat show every year. They have a tremendous amount of boat slips in there, and then you have a wooden boat parade. I mean, there is just a tremendous amount of people coming from all directions to the area. So a lot of folks from Washington, a lot of people, from Coeur d'Alene, Hayden, and so forth will store their boats, there and get them out on the water. It's just it's 27 miles long. So it's not like you're congested with a ton of people on the water.
It's a big lake, yeah.
Yeah.
And the resort also has cruise.
Yes.
Cruise ships, for a lack of a better word. They're not really ships, but large cruise boats.
Mm-hmm.
So they do music on the water all summer long. There's yoga on the boats in the mornings on Thursdays, which I still have yet to do, but I'm going to do that hopefully this year.
Large boardwalk.
Yes.
At the resort there. And there's restaurants on the lake. And so that's just part of the summer months, which, you enjoy 3 to 4 months out of the year, maybe 5 months if you squeeze, a late September, early October out. But you can really enjoy it that time of year and just be out in the sun and enjoy the water.
That's why we're so tan.
Yes.
Even though we live in the north, we spend most of our time on the boat or on our dock. But it is really, when you speak of culture, I think that's what draws people. There's lots of second home owners here. And so lots of people who have homes on the lake, cabins, or will just literally purchase a boat slip and then just have their boat all summer here because you literally could, live on the water. I mean, it's very dry. I came from a similar northern climate, moving from another place here into Coeur d'Alene. And the things that I would say I enjoy the most about it is that because it's a bit more arid and dry, you don't have a lot of rain. So, you can really count on a lot of those 3 months to be dry, sunny, warm, and you can really take advantage of it. Which is also a reason that a lot of people have Airbnb or other short-term rentals here. We're both in the real estate business. And so, we have owned those as well. And we also help people purchase those properties so that they might think that they want to retire here or spend some time here, but they can also be an investment for them because it is really a destination area. Yeah. But the people that live here get to take advantage of the culture because there's also a lot of things that just happen downtown, from fairs to concerts to car shows and parades, and pretty much all summer long, live music. You can really spend time not only during the week, but during the weekends, just enjoying the time outside and counting on that. Pretty dry, not very humid, not many bugs. If you're coming from the Midwest and you're thinking about moving here, those are the triggers that are going to be interesting to you because they are to me. Obviously different for other people, but
I would just add too, Brian, it's not exclusively boats too. There is some great fishing on a few of the rivers here, Coeur d'Alene River and the St. Joe River, that feed into Lake Coeur d'Alene. And a lot of people enjoy not only the fishing, but also just the kayaking, the rafting, the tubing. And those are some big summer events for people. And they really, really do enjoy that. And it's a great day, to spend on the river too. So I wouldn't just say the lake is the only place to cool off. So you can really enjoy the river as well.
Tubing. There's just a lot of things that tourists and people that live here do. There's, you can parasail on the lake. You can rent,
airplanes.
There's airplanes that land on our lake, which is pretty cool. We watch that all the time when we're out in the boat. Cool. Not that the people that live here take full advantage of that, but certainly when people are traveling here, they do. But I would say someone who's newer to the area, these are the things that I enjoy still as a homeowner here that I think draws people when they come for a vacation and they go, oh, I want to live in Coeur d'Alene. And we were just talking about this yesterday as we were walking downtown after we drove our boat up. We were like, these are the days that you walk around and you see all the things going on and people enjoying so much. People come here for a vacation and they're like, I want to move here, or I want to buy a second home here. But that's the summer. There are other things to do in the winter.
I'm like, yes, yes. So you nailed it. I was like curious. I was like, okay, so we have summer, and then like as we come into fall, and then go into winter, because it sounds like people come up but like for the season. But how does that change throughout the year?
I would say fall is one of the most beautiful times of the year for me personally, experiencing it over the last 20 years. When people are looking for something that has truly 4 seasons, it's one of the few places that you truly do get 4 seasons. You have beautiful fall colors. It starts to cool down, the cool evenings and the warm days. It's beautiful. The colors around, the lake, the river, the mountains are just stunning. And there's a lot to do. There's a lot of activities that the community does, from art walks to different things that draws people in for those downtown businesses and so forth. And so it really is a community. And so sometimes a lot of people will leave and pull away the people that are just here for their second homes, but then the community really does come together and provide some great things for the downtown area. And then the smaller communities around, they just really enjoy, I think, doing some celebrations from Taste of the Town to, just so many different things.
Oktoberfest. Yeah. And the other thing that I love about this area, one thing that's different from where I moved to, is that this is a very outdoorsy, active community. And moving from the Midwest, there was some of that, but being in such a large city, it was more compartmentalized to like small suburbs, which doesn't give you the same community feel. So one thing that I've noticed coming into Coeur d'Alene and just being here for a couple of years is it really does feel very small, even though we still have a good population. So in those off months when we don't have a lot of tourists and people visiting or second homeowners here, we're always supporting the downtown and the local businesses, which downtown is full of local business owners. And they really get involved in the community, and the city puts together Oktoberfest and all these things that bring people into the city to benefit, those local business owners, but also to give us all something to continue to do after summer and to be part of the community. So I really enjoy that. But hiking is something that's really, really big here as well. And so of course we have the Ironman races. We've got multiple 5Ks, half marathons, marathons. What is the bike? The fondue, what is it? There's a huge bike. Yeah, we'll come back to that. We gotta search our minds. There's huge bike races. There's people come from all over, and these are things that happen in the fall. And so, after the summer heat, when things start to cool down, there's a lot of activities. Some of the things that I would say people love to do is there's a couple big hikes. One actually right by where we live, which is called Mineral Ridge, which is a beautiful hike. And I think in the fall, probably one of the best times to do it because it's not so hot.
Fall is hiking. Fall is hiking season.
Yes, fall. Yes. Sometimes spring if it's not too wet. You can do it in the winter. We've done it, but it depends how icy it is. So that is really great. And also Tubbs Hill, which is right next to the resort downtown around the lake. It's a great hike. It's great in the summer because you can jump off the rocks into the lake, but in the fall, it's beautiful. And when we lived downtown for a short period when we were buying our home, I hiked there almost every single day. And it was just very peaceful. So those are a couple of things, but for the adventurous, there's a zip line here. That's also another really funny story because I came from the Midwest where there's no mountains and no heights and I don't like it. And then I married somebody who's very adventurous and he's like, we should do the zip line. And of course I was like, well, why not? This can't be that bad. I'm scared of heights, but we'll figure it out. I was trying to impress him and I was very traumatized, to be honest with you, but it was great. It was a great experience. I'll never do it again. But for those of you that like heights, the zip line is quite phenomenal. Really, what is the highest? Do you remember what the highest zip line? It goes right across the lake. It might be like 300 feet up.
It's like 400 or 500 feet up and it's about a
half mile. So people that like to do that and will actually keep their eyes open could see a very beautiful view. I shut mine the whole time, so I have no idea how it looked. I can only imagine in my mind that it was beautiful. So that's cool. And the Hiawatha Bike Trail is something that I would highly recommend. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that, but most people will check that out when they come here.
Yeah. I can go into that, but I'll let you.
Yeah, let's okay. It sounds like there's a lot of outdoors things to do. Like yes. There's no shortage of things to do if you're into being outdoors or I myself personally I'm into that. I know I have friends that are not, but we still hang out. Yeah, we still drink coffee together and stuff. But
there's lots of coffee here.
Oh, really? Okay. I'm curious because we're kind of going through the seasons. So so we kind of went through fall. So like, how is winter time in Coeur d'Alene?
Cold.
Not as cold as Minnesota.
It is cold. What I tell people, and I have a lot of folks and clients that have moved to the area over the years, and it's a serious question because there is that, how much sun do you have? How much snow do you have? How much rain do you have? And so, basically I go through and tell them that we have upwards of 5 feet of snow this year. Now that's not standing 5 feet of snow, right? So we might have 3 inches come in, 2 inches come in, and
12 inches.
Yeah. And so it just depends on the storm, but we do stay in the 30s, the high 30s, during the winters, and we get down into the teens during the nights. But again, just like the fall, the community really rallies around winter. And so the day after Thanksgiving, they have one of the largest, it's a large parade, but one of the biggest lighting ceremonies in the country that takes place, and it draws in about 30,000 people into the downtown area to watch this not only parade and the lighting ceremony and the large fireworks ceremony as well. And it's just a great community event where people of all ages come together, weathering the storm, whether it's raining, snowing, or cold, or whatever it is, and they just enjoy it. And so it's not necessarily an outdoor event, but yes, you are outdoors. But you can do these cruise ships indoors and go see Santa, and you can do all these great things that brings kids out and families out. And that's really the culture. I think it's just so family centric around the area that you draw so many people in from, Western Washington to Phoenix to California to wherever, that are coming into the area just to experience that. And it's something that they haven't experienced maybe in a long time. And it was interesting. We were doing a Live After 5, a concert event with a friend of ours who's a part-time resident in our neighborhood. And she was just like, and she was with her daughter who's probably in her 30s and going, I just haven't experienced something like this in years. And that was because you just saw all families and kids and everybody running around and different people and in every situation. It was just a great experience for them, and they really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and they were coming from a larger city where you just don't necessarily have, that happen anymore.
There's lightings, but it's more like I would just say like a shopping mall centers where like I just think of like Irvine and or like where you're like, oh yeah, but it's not like community based, I would say.
That's right.
It's more just commercialized based.
Yes, exactly.
Well, imagine there's 30,000 people singing a carol, and you're just like,
it's like Whoville.
It's just an experience and great energy, and people are just taken in by the celebration and just enjoying themselves. But to go out there, it always amazes me every year that people weather that cold weather. They go out there and to see fireworks and to see this lighting and so forth. It's just a great experience. And so that for the winter is great. And then there's they're sledding around or sledding hills and so forth. And then a lot of people will flock to the resorts and go to the ski resorts. And so we have 3 of them close by. And so if you're, again, I know it's outdoor stuff, you can go do that and hit those up. And they're usually within about a 45-minute drive to an hour drive of us that you will experience most of those. But if you enjoy just snowshoeing, you can do that more local, or cross-country skiing, you can do that more local. So you're not having to go outside of the city too much and enjoy that. But we do, like the Pacific Northwest, we do enjoy our coffee. And we have a tremendous amount of coffee shops and coffee stands like you wouldn't believe. And so Cari was, didn't really understand the first time I came out here, every corner that you go by has a coffee stand, and I kid you not. And that coffee stand might be an 8x12 it's just drive-through windows, and people just love it. And
line up the streets. Just
doesn't matter where it's at, you're always going to have customers. And so there's a tremendous amount of coffee drinkers in the area. So, but there's some great coffee shops as well, and independent coffee shops, which is awesome, that we certainly support. But that's what I think people enjoy doing.
Yeah, and so it's interesting, Brian, because I like to bring 2 perspectives, because Chris moved here 20 some years ago from California, so a little bit colder to what he was accustomed to. I moved here from Minnesota, and it's warmer than what I'm accustomed to. So depending upon where you're coming from, I actually enjoy winter because I can walk outside all winter long for the most part. There might be a couple of days that it's really cold, but in Minnesota, it's a month that's really cold, and you don't walk outside. So it's very rare that during the day it would be freezing. If it is, it's barely below 30. So you can get out if you dress warm, and you can still get some fresh air and some exercise. And if you don't love to ski, you can go sit in the chalet, because that's what I do when they're skiing the big mountains, because I'm not used to those big mountains. So there's plenty for people to do. But in all seriousness, we did go up to one of the ski resorts, and there's snowshoeing, which, gorgeous views, but I don't have to go downhill. They do accommodate. And of course they had shopping and coffee shops and all the things that I enjoyed too. So it is really fun to, I think they cater to all different types of people. Now, if you're coming from a place where you are not used to snow and 30 is cold to you, you do have to be prepared, because it's a long season. But I moved from a place where we had a long winter season as well. I just feel like we can get out more, and there's more to do here. So it makes that time go by much faster in Coeur d'Alene, in my humble opinion. The last thing about that would be also, though, I think that, you know, the sun, we should talk about that, because people ask pros and cons. In Minnesota, it is very, very cold, but it is always sunny in the winter. In the Pacific Northwest, it is pretty cloudy. So that has been an adjustment for me personally, because I'm not used to living here, where it is much more dreary and cloudy, and there's not as much sun. So for people who are used to that, it might be something of an adjustment.
Yeah.
You appreciate the sunshine for sunny days. People flock outside when it's 40 degrees or 35 degrees and it's sunny. It feels actually quite nice.
Yeah.
And so you will flock out there and walk or do something outdoors, because you do appreciate that sunshine during the winter months.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it's funny how you said Pacific Northwest, because it's like, you know, it's like a regional type of thing. Like you all experience in essence the lack of sun during that period of time. Which is, I'm sure people leave, or they take vacation, they come back type of thing, to go get some sun or do what they have to in order to just kind of like make it through. But there are always pros and cons to everything. There's no perfect places we are here on Earth. So we're going through the winter, coming out of winter, into the spring. How does that look like in Coeur d'Alene?
False advertisement.
It's false advertisement. There's no spring. Rain.
Wait, what? You said 4 seasons. What's going on?
Second winter is what it is.
Yeah.
You just don't know what you're going to get, honestly, until
it happens.
maybe May, maybe April, if you're lucky. You do get some teasers with some 70-degree weather, but it's you know, as my boys were growing up and they're playing baseball and doing all these things, and you're freezing to death, playing these sports because, it's spring, it's going to be beautiful. Well, no, it was never the case. It's always cold and rainy and windy. And so it does take a little bit to warm up. And typically we start to see that usually in about May, we see it warm up. But it is a beautiful time. Everything's emerging, everything's blooming, everything's just coming out of dormancy. And so it really is. I mean, again, every season is beautiful.
Yeah.
We can't complain about it. I mean, we enjoy it, and we're in the mountains somewhat. And so we just enjoy that season when everything's new.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little rainy and a little dreary. It definitely, coming from Minnesota, is a later spring than I'm accustomed to. That would just be something to assess. But you're right. I mean, here's the thing: no place is perfect, and we can still get out and we can get exercise pretty much 12 months out of the year, where some places that isn't always viable, because I've lived in one of those. And I think, the summer and the fall make the winter and the spring well worth it. And we take a trip if we need the sun. And that's what a lot of people do when they're in the northern climates, and that's okay too. So we are close to the Spokane airport, for those people that don't really realize. Some people ask that question.
I was wondering that, yes.
Yeah,
that was my next question.
Spokane, Washington is about a 35-minute drive from Coeur d'Alene, so very easy to get to. And there are some direct flights to certain parts of the country. You might have one layover, but you can get anywhere you need to. And so it's not a far drive at all.
Awesome. And I can imagine, okay, so because you're pretty close to Washington, do people, you kind of like cross over back and forth people, I'm sure?
Yes, often.
Awesome. A lot of people work both, in either state. And so they'll make those commutes for sure.
Yeah. And
when people are moving here, Brian, because Chris and his team sell real estate in both locations, they're dual licensed. People will have to choose between, do I want to live in Washington, Idaho, is it Coeur d'Alene or Post Falls or one of the areas surrounding Coeur d'Alene, or do we move into Spokane Valley or Spokane? There are obviously pros and cons to both of them. Affordability can vary depending upon what you're looking at, but those are decisions people make. But people that live in Spokane or Spokane Valley can take full advantage of everything in Coeur d'Alene, and many of them do.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit in terms of the cost of living. What does that look like in Coeur d'Alene?
Well, since COVID, we really did spike, as much of the country did as well, in our average sell price and median sales price. And it became unfortunately unaffordable for a lot of our workforce, and that's the challenge. And I think a lot of cities face this. I know in California people are facing this the same threat, as far as just the affordability. We see that happening here too, and so it continues to be a challenge. And I know the counties and the cities are trying to combat that, and there are some projects that are trickling out. I don't think they're coming out in abundance, but however, we do see, we saw an uptick of 30% year over year in 21. We're seeing relatively the same, maybe about 28% over this year.
Wow.
But we're about median sales price about $540,000. So still affordable comparative to other communities. But, when you take the cost of living and what we're getting for wages here, it doesn't match that criteria so much. And so that's the challenge that we're facing. And so a lot of that influx that we've had has been, telecommunicate, people coming in and working remotely, and that's been a big boom to the area. And so we're definitely seeing the growth of that. And, we're seeing, with this new adjustment, a few things starting to come down. Pricing, which is needed. We need it to come down.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll just see how this fall shapes up in the remainder of the summer and the fall, along with the interest rates. But we're still very healthy. But I think this needed, slowdown in the pricing had to come. It just wasn't sustainable.
Right.
Yeah, there were so many people moving, from larger cities in the West, but even in Arizona, even from the Midwest, of course, California, Washington, et cetera, that just had the ability to choose where they could live and not have to work in an office anymore, which was interesting because they chose Coeur d'Alene, because many of them had probably been visiting here and saying, wow, if I could live there all year round. There's a few people that do that and then kind of change their mind after their first winter. We see that happen and they just come back for the summers again, depending upon where they come from. But, that did really drive prices up because, of course, people were moving from more expensive areas and they were willing and able to pay more. So that's, of course, what happened here. And it happened in a lot of places due to the migration pattern after COVID in 2020. So, but rent is pretty high here as well, because, again, it's just the supply and demand situation. So what rents are probably between $1,600 and $2,500 per month is pretty common, which that is also very high compared to just a few years ago.
Yeah, no, it's supply and demand. It's really kind of simple. It's interesting. I'm curious. Did you notice people moving from the Bay Area? Because it's kind of somewhat similar, like not super far away, but like kind of similar. I could imagine them moving, like
So California and Western Washington are the two areas, but that we have the most people surrender their licenses from, and so Orange County and then the Bay Area tend to be pretty big areas where we have people coming up, and then the San Diego area as well. And so that's where we see a lot of influx coming up. We see a lot of folks, either retired police or fire, tends to be draw as well. Folks coming up that had that background. But the Bay Area, Seattle, absolutely. So we have quite a few people come over from the Seattle area. And they like it because it's, the same time zone. We're in Pacific time zone. So they're there. They enjoy, a little drier, arid climate than what they're experiencing.
Warmer summer.
Yeah. And so we have a lot of that. And then it's an hour flight for them back into Seattle. So it's not or a 5-hour, 6-hour drive. So it's not that bad for them.
Yeah.
And that we are Pacific time zone, and that is interesting because the rest of the state is mountain. So most people don't realize that. That's just another thing that differentiates North Idaho from the rest of the state. I mean, in a lot of aspects, we feel like almost separate from the state, in this little panhandle, for not only the topography and where we're located and the feel of it, but even our time zone is different. So
that's like Florida. The Panhandle it's like a different culture than the rest of Florida, but it's still Florida. So
yes, exactly.
And the time zone is different too. So that's really interesting. I love those connections. It's like it blows my mind. That's so cool. Okay, so let's say like I'm I decided I'm moving. And okay, side note, I had 2 neighbors move to Idaho. One was a fireman, and I believe the other one was a bomb squad fireman. And so I was like, I was like, oh, dude, like he retired and he's living his best life. But
that's awesome. Good for him.
So let's say we're not retired and we're moving to the area. I kind of want to go into the schools. So like how does that look in the area?
Sure. So great school district, Coeur d'Alene School District, and then surrounding areas as well. And a lot of this you can look up online, but we have 2 high schools. We have, I think we have 3 junior highs, and then we have another high school, which is our, we have the tech, but then we also have the charter school, and that's one of the highest ranked, it's highly ranked, I should say, in the country, and does quite well. And so 2 large high schools, and then there's 1 in Post Falls, 1 in Rathdrum, which are smaller communities, and they're talking about adding another one. And so, and then we have 1 up north in the Sandpoint area. And so schools have been great.
They're definitely growing with the population, of course.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's just a matter of, finding out what you can, the challenges that they're facing is that the growth is so rapid. And so now it's just making sure that they have the money to do that and to add on to these schools and give them the benefits that they need. And that's the challenge I think a lot of communities face, and they're facing the same experience.
Yeah, we have a son who is going into his senior year at Coeur d'Alene High School. So, we're watching that growth, and they're having people vote. And I think our community is very much invested in making sure that the schools continue to grow with the growth of the community. And they're voting on, different referendums and things of that nature. So I think again, that goes to the culture. We are attracting a lot of people with families. It's not just people retiring. It's not just people with second homes anymore. These are people that are choosing to move here and actually establish themselves and just be in a new community that they want more of a culture and more of a community and a smaller feel for their kids. And being able to go to the lighting ceremony like they've never been able to with their family. And so for that reason, we have a lot of people that are very supportive of whatever needs to happen to make sure our schools keep up with that growth as well.
Yep. And then you do have higher education of North Idaho College is a 2-year college. They have a tech college here as well. And then they have an extension of Boise State here, Lewis and Clark. And then we're about 90 minutes or so from the University of Idaho. And so that's, and Gonzaga is in Spokane, and then Eastern Washington State as well, and Whitworth College in Spokane. So, you do have your higher education nearby, and which is great too for a lot of these students to advance to.
Yeah, that's interesting. What's the commute like if you're going to, or maybe just a day trip to Boise, like from your guys' area?
Yeah, it's about it's a haul. It
7 hours or so.
It's easier to go to Spokane and jump on a plane and go down, but for those that do make that trek, it's about a 7-hour trip or so. And so it's a little bit of a drive.
Yeah. And of course, depending upon the time of year, you may not drive through the passes, or they may be shut down, or that's the same thing going to Seattle. So because we are surrounded by mountains and we have different mountain passes all around us, sometimes driving isn't viable during certain times of the year. And so then you do have to fly. But you can take fast flights down to Boise as well as to Seattle from Spokane pretty easily and not super expensively.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And you mentioned the charter school as well. For a high school, are there any other charter schools like in the area, or is
I'm sure Spokane has
some. There is in Spokane, and then in Rathdrum, a smaller community just to the northwest of us, there is one as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then there's some private schools as well around as well that go through 12th grade.
Great. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. In California, we're not super hot we're not doing super hot in education wise, testing wise, but I just think I'm all for. I actually work at a charter school, so it's it's interesting seeing the differences between private, public, and charter, because I've been in all 3. So I'm all for the school choice, all for that, the different options and stuff.
Different options, yeah.
In terms of your community, kind of like vote, like, you guys like vote, or you're like, is there like input for another high school kind of a thing, or you were mentioning?
Well, there's just the need. Post Falls is the next probably area, which is the nearby city, which is just 5 miles away, honestly. And so it is growing rapidly. And so there's going to be a need there for a second high school in the near future. And so I don't know what the docket, but there's been what's on for the docket, but there's been talk of that in the near future.
Oh, interesting. All right. And then, if you're watching this in the future in 5 years, you can kind of see how that develops. That's
right.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it'll look like in 5 years from now. Just the last 3 years, it's grown so exponentially.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay. I'm curious, like for the culture of the area, like how would you describe that?
I would describe it coming somebody maybe looking from the outside in, not being part of it so much. I would say it's certainly, it's very much a small town feel, even though our county has 180,000 people, and the county's not very spread out. I guess comparative, and traffic's not very bad. So you can get to and from places really quickly. So even though there might be some mileage, it's different. When I came from the Twin Cities metro area, so it might take you 45 minutes just to get 20 miles. But here, if you drove 45 minutes, you'd go 45 miles, right? So everything feels pretty close and you can get to and from for the most part. Our traffic has increased, but it just is not near like a large city. So when I say that, it still feels very small, both geographically and just, the people just still feel like they're part of a small town. And I grew up in a town of 500 people. And so I kind of compare it to a culture of, you don't know everyone, but you really do. The circles are small. You go to yoga and you see somebody, and then there's at high school, and then you go to the Live After 5 and you see them. So you're still seeing a lot of very familiar faces, very, very supportive of local business, very, very supportive of service, members within our community and people that have served our country and communities. That's the type of people that are around here, people that just really appreciate that, I think is something I notice. And very, for the most part, pretty active, and people that are, even if not active, like maybe just walking, but just really appreciate the beauty and the outdoors. And it's because we're surrounded by beautiful nature. For people that are not used to this, Minnesota is great for a lot of reasons. I grew up there and I have a very big part of my heart there still. And yet you didn't walk outside and go, this is so beautiful. We're just really blessed being here in this panhandle where you can look out and see mountains and water and wildlife. And there's a moose crossing the street downtown in the winter. And there's an elk when I go for my walk. And, there's baby deer being born in our backyard. Like, these things are so interesting to me. But I can drive 10 miles and I can be by every single convenience I need. And that's like perfect for me, because I don't know if I'd live in the country in Montana away from conveniences, because I like being by coffee shops and I like being, by live music. But yet I can go 10 miles and I can feel like I'm in Montana. For a lack of better words, that's the way I think of it. Somebody coming, to the area fairly recently. That is what I think it attracts people that appreciate that. So there's some commonality of people that really like to spend time in the outdoors and just really are grateful for where they live. What else would you add?
I would just say community centric. At every event, when I talk about some of the events that we draw 30,000 people, well, and we were just at this Art on the Green, which is one of the largest art fests in the Northwest, and it takes over 200 volunteers for that, right? Those are local people that are likely putting that in there.
Oh, yeah.
We host the Ironman event every year, both a half and a full. And
it's thousands of volunteers.
It's a lot of volunteers, and the community always steps up and always supports, and it welcomes all that are coming through, and which is just awesome to see how we responded to all the things over the years, and they never fail. And then I would just say to the service, both the men and women in police and fire and so forth, and the support that they give for them, and it's always an honor to see that and how they stand up for those folks. And so it's a great community. And I just, like Cari said, I think we're just really fortunate to be around such natural beauty, but then just some great people in the community.
Well said, Cari. You had me at Baby Deer, and Chris, you had me at Iron Man. So I was like,
perfect.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. It sounds like a beautiful place, and it sounds like the American dream is still alive and well in the area. Yeah, that's amazing.
Well said.
Yeah, so cool. Well, is there anything I didn't ask or you wanted to include? Because sometimes I
No, we have a Costco. That's
Costco,
one of
cool.
the biggest, that's one of the biggest questions we have.
That is a big question.
You would be totally
it's a thing.
surprised by that.
It's a thing.
It
It's
is.
100%. There's some products at Costco that you
Just
you
can't
need.
get anywhere
I'm
else.
telling you, there's a following there, and I wouldn't believe it. I love Costco, but to hear people, and that's one of their questions when they're scoping the area. They're like, "Hey, so how far?" And then then they think, "Well, how far is that from the Costco?" It's not even Costco might rank higher than the hospital, right? And so,
How far of a drive to Costco from my house?
I love it. Tell them exactly how far they are.
Yeah, we go to Costco a lot, so we love that. But that is interesting. That might be a good thing that he hasn't asked, because being in real estate, and Chris and his team serve hundreds of clients moving to the area every year. Costco is one of your biggest questions, really, for real. What other questions do you get? I mean, have we covered most of them?
I think we've covered. I think the weather is probably the biggest, and so most people coming from the southern climates, California, for example, that's a big question, and so they want to know. And I encourage people. I say, come and spend Christmas up here, spend Thanksgiving up here, spend a time in January, just so you know what you're getting into in the sense. And most people will get that. They want to enjoy that and they want to embrace it. And it's just not a weekend that you go up to the Sierras and enjoy the snow. I mean, you're living in it. And so how do you adjust to that? Because it is a real thing. And most people appreciate that. And so the weather is a big part of our area.
Snow tires. I had to get snow tires. I've lived in a climate with snow my entire life. We never had to get snow tires because we live in flat land. There's mountains and hills here. So we need actual tires that will help us so we don't, slide off the side of the mountain, which has been an adjustment for somebody like me. But, those are little questions people ask. Do I have to get snow tires? Like, how much snow are we shoveling? What do I need to know about, like, just actually living in the snow on a daily basis? So
I've always wondered when you need snow tires. So because I know some people have them, some people don't, and I was like, what's the difference? But you clarified right there. It's
in October you can put them on.
Yep,
and,
you gotta take them off in April.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Oh,
yeah, she has her own pairs, snow tires.
Yeah, first time for everything.
That's so cool. Well, this has been such a cool talk about Coeur d'Alene. This Chris and Cari, thank you so much for
So when are you coming to visit us, Brian?
I know.
Now we got you excited about Coeur d'Alene.
I want to be there for the Christmas lighting. That sounds amazing. That sounds like I didn't know that existed. I guess, I'm like in a bubble in Southern California, so everyone is kind of just like, in your car, or you're like, go, 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 type of thing. So, and so when
That's a good point.
That would be the last thing I would say to you.
Yeah.
If you made the move, or when people make the move, one of the other adjustments, because I lived it, is just slow down. Because what you find, and it doesn't matter, like even if you're at a four-way stop and you're like, no, go ahead. Like,
no, good.
You're like, where did that come from? Like, I would be just in the past, like, I got to be there first. Now it's just like, go ahead. You're good.
Just laid back a little bit.
It's a different experience. And you find that in your driving, in the roadway, you find that just opening doors, you find it that you do appreciate and you do slow down. Right?
And that might have something to do with the nature. I don't know how else to really attribute it, because it's very interesting. Because normally you would find, like, they say people in the South move slow because of the heat. Well, it is hot here in the summer. We're going to reach 100 degrees again a couple of days this week. And so it gets hot. And so that might have something to do with it. But in the winter, we're still doing all of those same things. And I do think that it's part of the culture, which is like, we're just not in that big of a hurry. And we just take time to enjoy. And that has been really refreshing for me, because even coming from Minnesota and a large city, I think really it's a city, right? Of a larger metropolitan area. It is like, you're in rush hour. I've got to leave before this time. And everything just seems so regimented and so fast paced that has been a beautiful part of this move for me, for sure, is to just slow down and enjoy the views and enjoy life a little bit more, and what you have around you. And so that would be a great part of it.
That was so good. Well, we're gonna end it there. That's thank you again, for sharing all this. And if you guys have any additional questions, Chris and Cari will be happy to help you with any of your needs. So their information will be down below and up top. And until next time.
We appreciate it. Hope to see some of you come to Coeur d'Alene.